Finally, and it feels like it's been forever since I've been able to say this, but it is officially a Detroit Lions game week. Detroit going on the road to Lambeau Field to open up week one, open up the NFL season against the Packers. What better way to do it with division rivals? And we're joined again by Mike Payton from A to Z Sports. We're going to be joined by Mike every week for the Lions game plan. Mike, you've been previewing this team for 5 weeks now, maybe even going further back to the offseason. It is finally time to get going. Just what's the excitement level after being at training camp every day and seeing this team put in the work to finally see the product on the field Sunday afternoon?
Yeah, I think everybody is ready to go. That's the sentiment between the media, the players, the fans. Everyone is ready to get this season underway, and everybody is wondering just how good the Lions are going to be in 2025.
So the hot storyline going into this game is on the Packers side. They, of course, acquired Micah Parsons from the Cowboys last week, sending shockwaves throughout the NFL. But the moment that trade went through, if you're a bettor, if you're in tuned with the lines of games and for the season, the Packers jumped to be the favorite to win the NFC North this year. The Packers, they're the favorite to beat the Lions on Sunday afternoon. Yes, the game is in Green Bay. It's at Lambeau Field. How motivated do you think this Lions team is that they had such a good season last year, but immediately now they're still being looked at as the underdogs, at least in their own division, headed into week one against the Packers?
Well, that's right where they want to be. The Lions want to be the underdogs. The Lions want to be the team that people think are going to fall. And if this is just another domino, this is Micah Parsons, add that to Ben Johnson and Aaron Glenn leaving, and add that to Frank Ragnow retiring. The Lions love this. This is where they want to be. They want to be in the mud. They want to feel like everybody is against them. And that's when they're really good. It's when they're proving that they're really good is when, you start worrying about things going wrong. But when they have to come out and show the world that they are no slouches, that's where they want to be. And Dan Campbell has talked about it at length over the past few years. He wants these teams to be better. He wants the Packers and Vikings and Bears to be the best teams they could be, because that's football to him. That's competitive football. I don't think he wants to go out and blow out every team every week. Obviously, I mean, I'm sure he wants to some degree, but I think he wants competitive football, and playing at Lambeau, that there's no better place to do it. And with Micah Parsons on the team now, it just makes things even more competitive and even more interesting.
And going off that, I mean, it seems like people around the NFL, whether it be fans or national analysts, have forgotten that for the first half of last season, maybe 3 quarters, when the Lions were fully healthy, they were far and away the best team in the NFL. It wasn't close. Then obviously the injury bug hit. They ended the season on not a spiral, but a bit downhill, and then the upset loss to the Commanders. But now they're healthy again. Obviously some injuries they're still working with, guys that will come back throughout the first couple weeks of the season. Like you mentioned, Frank Ragnow retiring. Going into week one throughout training camp, what are some of the biggest differences player-wise that you feel that this team is different than going into week one last season?
I think it's all on the defensive side. And you mentioned kind of, before everybody started getting hurt last year, this Lions defense was actually one of the top 5 units in the league. Even after Aiden Hutchinson went down in week 6, going back to week 12, this team was second in defensive DVOA. They were very, very good. And then Anzalone got hurt, and McNeil got hurt, Robertson, Davis, and all these guys got hurt. And it was just, they just couldn't keep up with it. I don't know any team that would be able to. And now they have Aiden Hutchinson back. They've got upgraded on their interior and the defensive line. It's much deeper with Roy Lopez, and Mekhi Wingo is back from injury, and Tyleik Williams. And once you get Lee McNeil there, it's going to be just even better. And then DJ Reed is an upgrade over Carlton Davis. And I think this team has the best linebacker core in the entire NFL, with Grant Stewart and Zach Cunningham and Trevor Nowaski kind of shoring up that depth issue that they may have had last year. And then obviously Anzalone, Jack Campbell, those guys are just tremendous. So this defense looks like a unit that could be top 5 to maybe even the best defense in the league. They are a team to watch. I know that sounds crazy to everybody because They don't have the all-star edge rusher opposite Hutchinson that everybody wanted, but this group is really, really good.
And to be one of the best defenses in the league, they're going to need Aiden Hutchinson to pick up where he left off. We heard it all throughout training camp that he was dominant. He looked as good as ever. He looked great in the joint practices. But Sunday is going to be his first actual game. We didn't see him in any of the preseason games. What can we expect from Aiden Hutchinson out of the gate? I mean, do you expect him to come out Lambeau Field on Sunday and look as good as he ever has? Or do you think, maybe people should give him some grace the first few weeks as he's trying to work his way back in game action here?
This guy looks like a guy who did not break his leg last year. I know that if it were me and if I broke my leg, I would be consistently worried about doing it again. And I think that would probably, the mental side of that would hamper what I'm able to do physically. But he looks so good. And I know that it sounds crazy to just keep saying that he looks better than he did before he broke his leg, but he does. He looks unbelievable in training camp and joint practices. He just looks like a man who is unstoppable, to the point where the Lions have essentially have a new rule called the Hutch rule at training camp, where if Hutchinson gets anywhere near Jared Goff, they don't stop the play anymore. They just let it keep going, because if they had to stop every time Hutchinson got close to Jared Goff, then they'd be stopping every 5 minutes, because the guy he keeps getting back there. He keeps sacking the quarterback, and he's going to be a problem. He's going to be a problem for opposing offensive linemen this year. And again, he just does not look like a guy who broke his leg. I think that's the big side. That's the really big side that he has shown this summer, that mentally he's just not afraid. He had a few instances early on where maybe he got leg whipped, or he had some things where, I think that would probably frighten the normal person. But for him, that gave him the confidence to know that he was going to be okay. And I think this Sunday we're going to see him.
And Dan Campbell talked this week just about how excited he is to see Hutchinson on the field. And sticking with the defense, Kelvin Shepard obviously taking over as the defensive coordinator, Aaron Glenn over to New York to be the Jets head coach. But Shepard's been a part of this defense, for the past few years. He knows these guys. He knows the scheme. What have you seen from Shepard's side of things during training camp? Hearing him speak, do you think things are going to be too different scheme-wise on the defensive side of the ball, or will it be business as usual with someone in-house taking over there?
Yeah, I think schematically you're going to see a lot of the same things. There'll probably be some wrinkles that Shepard has added that maybe you haven't seen before, but a lot of what you see is essentially what you saw with Aaron Glenn. Mm-hmm. And in terms of kind of taking over that role and being able to be the voice in that room, it was immediate. Everybody has already, and I think obviously, like you mentioned, that a lot of that has to do with the fact that he's been here for the last few years. But to step up from just being the voice for the linebackers to being the voice for the whole defense, there's been no slouching in that. There's been no lag. He just took it right over, and it's already starting to work. We'll see what he does in terms of blitzing so much, but I'm telling you, this guy's been ready for the job since 2022 when you saw him on Hard Knocks. He should have been a DC years ago. And I think the worry for him is, how long is he going to be here too? Because now he's going to be a guy I think everybody's going to want to be a head coach before you know it.
Yeah, a good problem to have that affected the Lions this offseason. And then on the offensive side of the ball, I mean, that's a group that you have to expect them to pick up right where they left off. The highest scoring offense in the league last year. Most of them are back. Just, a lot of continuity on that side of the football. But where there isn't is obviously at that center position. Frank Ragnow retiring. We've seen a few different guys step into that role during training camp, during spring ball. Graham Glasnow, he's going to play on Sunday, which is great news for the Lions. What do you expect out of the center position? And again, going into game action where these starters didn't see any during the preseason, do you expect there to be some rustiness as Jared Goff tries to get used to a new center here?
I would expect the Packers to immediately test the interior of the offensive line, because like everybody else, we don't really know. We've seen what happens at training camp and in joint practices, and they've looked fairly good. They've been able to hold up and open holes for the run game and keep Jared Goff clean for the most part. But we don't know what it's going to look like in a live game against a live defense and a live defense with Micah Parsons, of course. So it's going to be different. But I think the Lions feel very confident about what they have. I know Tate Ratledge has really grown this summer, and you haven't really heard anything about Christian Mahogany, but that's kind of been a no news is good news type situation. And then Glasgow, we know he's played center before, but now he's going to have to do it for an entire year, and we'll see how that goes. And some of the instances where he played center in the past, it didn't go so well. In others, it did. So what exactly are we going to be getting the whole time? Those are big questions that are going to need to be answered on Sunday.
Yeah, and then for the run game, I'm curious what we're going to see from that group this year, because another year that you expect Jahmyr Gibbs to just keep getting better and better at this point. And then you have David Montgomery, who is such a compliment to him. And, he's a year older as well, though. Do you expect coming into this year them to get similar reps as we've seen in the past 2 years? Or do you expect that maybe Gibbs could see more of the reps, more on the goal line for Montgomery? How do you expect those two to split the carries this year?
Well, the way that the team has been built in terms of blocking and then downfield blocking with receivers and the maneuvers that they've made with coaching, like hiring Tashard Choice and moving Scotty Montgomery over the receiver coach, it seems like everything is surrounding the idea of Jahmyr Gibbs running the ball more than he ever has before. Now, I don't think that means that David Montgomery is going to get pulled back a lot. I think they might still do the Jahmyr plays one drive and then David does another drive, but I think they may lean more into whoever the hot hand is in this particular game. But still, everything that they've done seems to point to the idea that Gibbs is going to start getting more on his plate and kind of be that number one running back as opposed to 1A and 1B moving forward.
And then just moving around the position groups here, I don't even want to talk about Amon-Ra St. Brown, because we know how consistent he is, how consistent he was during training camp, during joint practices, and I feel like people shouldn't expect anything less. But then his number 2 guy, Jameson Williams, had so many great moments last year. And then he had some bad moments as well, on the field, off the field. But it seems like there's a lot of confidence toward JMO last year. But it seemed like that way last year as well. No matter what you get from him, it's going to be solid production for a wide receiver too. But do you expect him to take that leap again this season and just keep getting better for this offense?
I do, and I think the big thing here is that it's what the coaches are saying, and you're seeing what the coaches are saying once you actually go out there and watch it on the field. He's gotten better at route running. He's gotten better at tracking the ball in the air, which used to be the big thing that was the problem with him, is he was always trying to find the ball, and it would cause struggles. And he's gotten so much better at that in the last year, and then obviously this summer as well. He's gotten a little bit stronger, but he's gotten more mature. At least that's the way that we see him. He's handling the media a little bit better. He's handling being kind of a leader a little bit more. So we'll see where that goes. Obviously, he needs to stay out of trouble and no more suspensions, no more issues off field. And if he can have an amazing season, he's going to get a very big check, the most money he's ever made in his life. He just needs to go out and have a great season. I think he's going to be able to do it.
So motivation for him this year to produce on and off the field. And Mike, we have to talk about Isaac TeSlaa here. Had such a good training camp, shined in the preseason games, but, it's no secret the wide receiver room is crowded there for that third spot. Got a little less crowded when the Lions traded Tim Patrick to the Jaguars, but going off the production that we saw from TeSlaa in training camp, do you expect him to go out there and play immediately week 1 as wide receiver 3, or do you think they're going to ease him in now that he's getting in with the ones here and regular season NFL action?
Yeah, I expect since he got drafted, since the start of camp, I expected him to surpass Tim Patrick and be that wide receiver 3, and he's done that. I don't pay much attention to the unofficial depth charts that have Khalif Raymond ahead of him. I don't think that's really means what everybody thinks it means, but I think we'll see a pretty good amount of TeSlaa. Now, with that said, I wouldn't be drafting him very high in your fantasy drafts if you haven't done those yet, because obviously, like you mentioned, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jamison Williams, Sam Laporta. There's a lot of mouths to feed on this offense. So I think Tesla is going to get a lot of action in the red zone. I think he'll get some opportunities to stretch the field with some of that speed that he has. But I think you'll see him get a lot of those Tim Patrick or Josh Reynolds type things where he's catching first downs. A lot of split in angle type routes where he can get open, schemed open, get a first down. Those are the types of things you'll see Tesla do. Maybe he gets about 400 yards, 3, 4 touchdowns this year. Nothing insane, but that's a pretty good rookie year for a wide receiver 3.
Mike, the schedule is really hard. Just off the top of my head, going to Baltimore, going to Cleveland, going to Philly, going to Cincinnati. I mean, what's the ceiling for this team with how difficult the schedule is? Because I expect them to be just as good on the field as they were last year, but the opponents are going to be a bit tougher than they were last season. So what's the ceiling with how difficult the schedule is, specifically the road portion where they're going to most of the top teams in the league at some point during this season?
I wouldn't expect that the Lions win 15 games again, and that's not a bad thing. Winning 15 games is really hard to do 2 years in a row. That's why no team has ever done it. So I'm kind of angling more towards the 12 to 13 type wins. That's still going to get you in the playoffs. That still can win you the NFC North. That can still get you the first seed in the NFC. I just think this season is going to be a little bit harder with a lot of those road games, as you mentioned. You're going to have some winter type games closer to the end of the season that you didn't have last year. And just you don't know who's going to pop up and suddenly be good. The New York Giants could come out of nowhere. The Aaron Rodgers thing could work in Pittsburgh, although I don't think it will. But anything can happen. So you never know who's going to be good. You never know who's going to fall off a cliff. The Ravens were really good last year. Maybe they're bad this year. You never know. The Chiefs, maybe that whole thing's over. So it's hard to predict what's going to happen during the NFL season, but I do believe that the Lions are still a very good team who can definitely win the NFC North and be the first seed. I just don't think it's going to be as easy as it was last year to get there.
I don't think it is either and it starts with a tough road game on Sunday. And like we talked about at the beginning of the show, Packers are favored to win that game. Why is that? What do you think it is that the Packers could possibly do better than the Lions? We know about Micah Parsons. We know about Jordan Love. But what is it, the nitty-gritty, that has people thinking and talking about at this point that maybe the Packers could be a better team than the Lions?
I think it's a combination of narratives. I think it's Micah Parsons being traded there. I think it's the idea that Frank Ragnow retired and that Ben Johnson and Aaron Glenn are gone. And you combine all that stuff, and I think people honestly outside of Detroit and outside of Michigan don't think Dan Campbell's a good coach, which is insane. But I think it's a combination of all those things, and that's what's kind of leading Vegas to think the Packers can win this game or will win this game. And they're a tough team, no doubt about it. Parsons is no joke, and Rashawn Gary, as Michigan fans, he's no joke as well. They've got a solid defense. Edrin Cooper, some good guys over there, but at the end of the day, Micah Parsons does not change that the Packers have struggled to find wide receivers. They've struggled to be able to stop the run, and they have 2 brand new defensive tackles starting in the middle of that defensive line after they traded Kenny Clark, who was a thorn in the Lions' side for so long. Their secondary is kind of hampered. It's not that great. They have a lot of problems. The Packers have some issues, and I think the Lions could definitely exploit some of those things. And I don't know if anybody can look past the narratives quite yet.
What's your biggest question mark headed into Sunday? Is it John Morton, first game as the offensive coordinator? Is it the Lions' offensive line, Aiden Hutchinson's return to the field? What are a couple things that you're specifically curious about and will be keeping an eye on for that matchup against the Packers?
Well, John Morton is definitely pretty high on that list. I'm really interested to see how he's going to run this offense. Is it going to be fairly similar to what Ben Johnson did? Are there going to be any trick plays? I know that everybody kind of thinks those are going away, but we saw a few this summer that were pretty interesting, stuff that Ben Johnson hadn't tried. Is he going to do that stuff early? Are they going to throw the deep shot, which is what the Lions have been doing all summer, has been trying to load up and throw deep passes, which has not traditionally been a part of their offense. How much are they going to do that going into this season? Then on defense, Marcus Davenport has been just unreal. And I know nobody wants to believe that because he has such an injury history, but he has looked like a just completely different player. Is he going to be able to stay healthy? And if he can stay healthy and he can go out and do the things that we've seen him do all summer, Ben or Brad Holmes will never buy another drink in this town again. Like he can do whatever he wants. He clearly knows more than we do. So I'm really interested to see those things. And obviously, yeah, the interior of the offensive line is something we're all going to be watching to see and how that all works out. But those are the things that are on my mind.
All right, Mike, my favorite part of our conversations last year was making you predict what was going to happen on Sundays, because it was the comeback against the Texans last year where a few days before you predicted right here that Jake Bates was going to kick a game-winning field goal in the game and then proceeded to happen. So pretty much what you say, that's how it's going to go down. We have to do both now because this is going into week one. Start with the Packers. They're favored, I believe, by a point and a half on Sunday afternoon. Do you think the Lions can go into Lambeau and start the season with a road win in a tough road environment?
I do. I think it's going to be a tough road environment, like you mentioned. Green Bay fans, they pack the stadium, but Lions fans travel well. We're going to see how many fans they can get into the stands there, and it's not going to be a frozen tundra this week, so that's certainly going to make fans a little bit more eager to go that way. But I am going to go with the Lions. I believe that they're going to be able to run the ball on these two brand new defensive tackles that the Packers have. And Micah Parsons, for as good as he is as a pass rusher, has never really been that good of a run stop. So I believe that the Lions will be running the ball all day long, and they'll open up the offense a little bit and get some passes off those runs. And I am going to go with a score of 24-15. Lions win.
All right. And at this point, and I'm pretty sure we had the same conversation going into week one last year, but I have no problem saying it's Super Bowl or bust for this team. At least NFC Championship or bust after 2 North titles, a deep playoff run, getting into the second round with the bye last year. With how tough the schedule is, how do you see this regular season winding up, and how far do you have this team going once they get to the postseason?
If the Detroit Lions can stay healthy in 2025, they will win the Super Bowl. I just mentally, the way that these guys are right now, that's the only thing they want to talk about. In the past, it's been, we want to win the division. We want to win a playoff game. Now the only thing anybody wants to talk about is we want to win the Super Bowl. And David Montgomery called this season a year of reckoning for the Lions. And I think that is the way that everybody on this team feels. They're going for it all. I think if they stay healthy, they do it.
That is music to Lions fans' ears. I mean, a great place to be, a great way to start the season, Mike. We appreciate you per usual. Lions and Packers, 4:25 on Sunday. Mike Payton, A to Z Sports. You can catch all of his great coverage there. And Mike, we will catch up with you before the Lions take on the Bears week 2, the home opener back at Ford Field.